Do you think it's important for the UK to get to net zero?
How are we going to get to net zero? We can't even sort out the sewage in the rivers. There's just not the money to do it, is there?
It should be a priority without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm sure if it was conveyed that way properly, then people would make an effort.
I feel there are bigger problems in the world right now. If you look at ones that are closer to home, cost of living.
It is a climate emergency. The sooner we act, the cheaper it will be.
We are in a cost of living crisis, and that makes everything very difficult at the moment, but it's important we don't see them as entirely disconnected things. The climate crisis, if left unchecked, is going to make everything a lot more expensive. Food will be harder to grow, harder to bring in, so that will become more expensive. Healthcare will be increasingly important, and there'll be more strain on our services. All of these things will feed into what we currently think of as the cost of living crisis. So it's not a choice between them, we need to do both.
There's a lot of messages going around saying that net zero is going to mean huge costs for people and a lot of taxation. Is that correct?
I think one of the challenges around net zero is what's known as a just transition. In other words, not just the people that can afford it converting to low energy homes and vehicles, but that everybody is able to do so. So that is going to cost money, and yeah, there's no doubt that it has to be paid for.
I'm absolutely convinced that in the medium and the long term it's far cheaper, and you get a much better quality of life as well, whether it's pollution, a much lower household bills. The challenge of it, and we've got to be real about this, is often the upfront cost of either buying a car or a more efficient heat pump or all of these areas is more at the beginning, but you get huge benefits down the line almost immediately once you made that. So one of the challenges, if you like, is making that initial purchase achievable for people, and that's true of house insulation as well.
It will create jobs, the benefits will be long term. So it's an investment really, isn't it, at the beginning, will pay dividends for years and years into the future for everybody. If we can make sure we invest in that public transport as well, so people aren't disadvantaged, then we can get that just transition. But yeah, we have to start and we have to do it quickly really.
If we don't tackle the climate crisis, then the amount that we're going to spend at some point in the future trying to deal with that crisis is many, many times larger than just dealing with the problem. But it's also important to understand who pays, right? Climate solutions actually come with a whole bunch of co-benefits. There are people living in poverty in the UK, one of the world's richest countries, and they have to decide, are they going to spend their money on heating or are they going to spend their money on food? And one of the reasons is they live in such poorly insulated homes. So, with a modest amount of support from the government to properly insulate those properties, to install things like heat pumps and solar panels, you would have a significant decrease in greenhouse gas emissions, but at the same time, you're going to have an increase in living standards because the homes are going to be warmer, they're going to be spending less money on energy. So it's like a win-win. So there's a dangerous narrative that somehow the world's poorest, the world's most vulnerable, need to pay for sustainability transitions. It's just not true. The other thing to understand about the money that we need to spend to rapidly transition away from fossil fuels is how much money we currently spend in maintaining fossil fuels. So these vast government subsidies, basically tax breaks that governments give to oil and gas companies and the related industries in order to continue the extraction of oil and gas. And when you add all that money up together, it's in the orders of hundreds of billions of dollars around the world. Probably governments around the world spend more on subsidising oil and gas extraction than they do on their education systems.
There's huge amounts of money that's around. We need to take that money and deploy it in the right places to accelerate net zero. We know how to do it. We know we can afford to do it. We just got to get on with it. The best time to have done this would have been at least 20 years ago, but we didn't do that. And so now the pathway to net zero is steeper. But if we don't take any more action for the next 10 years, then that steepness, it looks more like a cliff edge.
If you go back 20, 30 years ago, there'll be good old-fashioned climate deniers, people who say the Earth's climate isn't even changing. And then when it became abundantly clear that the Earth's climate was changing, then they shift to, well, yeah, but humans aren't responsible. And then when there's overwhelming evidence that humans are responsible, then it's, well, we shouldn't act too fast, right? If we act too fast, then it could be a drag on economic growth. And it's kind of in that later stage of climate denial where you see some of this pushback around net zero. Because often it's about a fossil fuel company doesn't want to stop extracting oil and gas because then it's not going to make so much profit.
Climate change is a difficult problem, but if we don't start spending money on it now, it's going to be much harder and much more expensive for us in the future.